suck it up, to endure something painful, unpleasant, or otherwise dissatisfactory, to deal with or recover from some hardship or stress. Suck it up, endure something painful.
Welcome to the Suck It Up Man podcast. Happy to be back after a little vacation I had. And we've received a lot of really good feedback from you guys about the poker chat. Last time we spoke was a lot about the WSOP changes. We covered a lot of them, but we did not cover some of them. So Bryson, if you wanted to just pull up that link I sent you. And Josh, did you see this? This is pretty exciting news. So I was watching the Granu's vlog. He put out a couple days ago, but I watched it yesterday, and he said that the first year the Player of the Year was done was they did have a prize given out. I think he won like a Toyota Tundra, but then they stopped for a while. But now this year, really cool. Top 100 prizes or top 100 places get a prize, which is cool.
Yeah, I think it's nice that they're giving away something. The majority of people who are going to the series, this has absolutely zero impact on you. But if you are there for the whole series, it gives you something where you're like, hey, if I'm in the top 100 leaderboard, you get little bonuses. So anytime the house is going to give back, I'm not going to complain, because I think last year they raked $52 million or so. And don't quote me on that. Maybe it was 44 million, but they raked a lot of money out of the community. So for them to be giving some of it back, I think is great. Good job to them.
Yeah. And then this year they are including the WSOP Europe, which is actually starting here in another week. I will not be attending. I don't think you will be attending, but we do have some European friends and people we play poker with that might be attending. And then of course, the WSOP Paradise. So according to Negranu, the scale is weighted. So I believe the actual WSOP in Vegas is going to have the majority of the points that are able to be won. But they are including the other two, Europe and Paradise, which is great for the people attending that.
I don't know if I consider that great. I mean, it's one of those things where, yeah, they're going towards Player of the Year points, so they are really directing it towards the circuit pros. So kudos to them, because now they have something to play for all year round. I think to your average Joe Sixpack who goes to Vegas to play in the WSOP, or who goes to Europe to play in the WSOP, I don't think that they are like excited about it. I think it's much better when it was all in one spot. I mean, having a WSOP Bahamas at the same time, just because you're trying to counteract the WPT in December, is pretty aggravating to players. And I hope they can eventually move that to February or like mid-January or something that doesn't correspond with other big circuit or tournament events that are going on. Because when they have it in December and then players have to decide between Bahamas and Vegas, the majority of players pick Vegas, and that's the other thing is it's not a lot of grinders. The people who go down to Bahamas are genuinely, most of you're dealing with more pros down there than you are going to be in Vegas. Like the $550 mini mystery that's going to be the first event I'm playing in, a no limit hold'em event out of all things, but it's event number one, $1 million bounty. It's you're going to have people play that where it's like, oh, this is my first WSOP experience, where if somebody buys into a $15,000 Bahamas no limit hold'em tournament, it's not their first time. That's basically what I'm getting at there.
Yeah, I agree with the scheduling of the WSOP Paradise. And this is something that Brad Owen mentioned in his video that we covered, I think, a couple weeks ago, where, it was kind of a, looked at as a dick move essentially by the WSOP, because the WPT came out at the win and it was super successful. And then the WSOP said, okay, we're going to literally schedule at the exact same time. But as the point you made, I think a lot of people choose Vegas over the Bahamas mainly for the cost of the trip, right? I mean, like Atlantis is where the WSOP Paradise is played. And I've seen that it's $500-$600 a night, right? I mean, unless you're like Negranu or Phil Hellmuth or some of these top pros, average Joe six-pack is not going to be able to afford $500 a night hotel.
Well, and let's just put it in perspective for a second there, Wayne. You said that it was grossly successful. It wasn't grossly successful. You and I were saying to each other, this is the WSOP, this is World Series atmosphere in December at the Wynn. And I'm sure the WSOP heard that and it probably pissed them off. But it's like, don't try to take more from the pool at the same time. Just grow the pool by having the Bahamas event and put it in February. You know, that's my thought process on it. But doing it at the same time with the WPT being so successful in that in December was kind of it was kind of an FU to all the players from the WSOP, because it was like, hey, we want to participate in the WSOP. We want to play for bracelets, but now we're choosing between what the WPT built in December, which now you and I kind of do it like a tradition minus, but versus now it's like, oh, now I got to go to the Bahamas and drop, $8,000 just to get there and enjoy myself. It's like, yeah, it just, I don't know. It is what it is.
Because there are only so many premier poker events throughout the year, right? I mean, obviously you have the WSOP coming up in May, which is the premier event. But then other than that, really the WPT at the Wynn in December, you would probably say is the second most prestigious poker event, of the year, right? I mean, especially after the huge success they had. I believe 22 or 23 was their first year. And then the WSOP could have easily just said, hey, we'll either do it. November is probably a bad month. You have Thanksgiving and stuff. But I think January or February would make perfect sense, because then it's, a month or so after the WPT ends. And then it's still 4 or 5 months separated to the actual WSOP. But for them to say, hey, we're going to literally schedule it the exact same time as the WPT, a lot of people did not like that.
Whoever made that decision at the WSOP was not going to get promoted the following year, because the turnout was not very good, obviously. And then it hurt the turnout for the WPT that year, where they had, I think it was like a $45 million guarantee on their $10,000 buy-in main event. And they were short like $2 million, and they just paid for it. They were just like, yep, we have an overlay, whatever, we're going to pay for it. Good for them for doing that. But yeah. I don't like how watered down, bracelets, and I shouldn't say that they're watered down. I don't have any bracelets, so who am I to talk? But I feel like there needs to be, I don't know. I feel like, I don't know. People have a notoriety with bracelets and keep them that way. I don't know.
Yeah. That reminds me of the point that Brad Owen made in that video we covered a while back, where he said, and I agree with him, I don't think online events should be given a bracelet. Like, I think there has to maybe online events maybe get like a circuit ring, right? Because I mean, if somebody wins a live event with a couple thousand people, like, they deserve a bracelet, of course, right? But if you have an online event with,
I'm torn. I am absolutely torn on this. Pardon me for cutting you off, but 75% of my action is primarily online. But it's one of those things that, winning an online tournament, just because you might be able to do it in your car in a parking lot in New Jersey and screaming out the bag lady that you're the king of the world or whatever Ryan DePaulo did. That, by the way, that is one of the best videos out there for all you poker players who haven't seen it. It's when Ryan DePaulo wins his bracelet event, and he had to do it in New Jersey, and he's literally 5 o'clock in the morning, like doing it on his laptop on Wi-Fi or whatever. And then when he wins, he gets out of his car and he's like, I'm the king of the world. And there's like this bag lady. She don't give a shit. Well, let me tell you, it takes, it's not quite the same as having a bunch of guys railing you from behind and they're all chanting. Sure. But I don't know if I would dock it so much. I think what's happening, and this might be why they have the Bahamas thing, is same thing with some of the other changes that we're seeing with the player of the year points, is when you have the circuit pros bitch and complain, which is what you have. And by the way, they have a right to bitch and complain. So I'm not docking them for bitching and complaining. But when you have circuit pros bitch and complain that they would want changes like on player of the year and this, that, and the other, because they're the ones who buy into the most tournaments, the WSOP caters to them. So of course they have more events and things of that nature. So I get it. But for your average Joe six pack, it just, for us, it doesn't do anything, for us. You follow me?
Yeah, maybe the solution is having some kind of a requirement to be a bracelet event, right? Like, unless the buy-in is $100,000 or more, right? Like, because obviously, like some of the PPC and some of these super high rollers, 250K or whatever, they're only going to get what 50 to maybe 80 entrants, right? Because there aren't that many people walking around that's just going to dump 250K into an event, right? So those are probably exceptions, but if it's not a super high buy-in event, maybe it has to have, I don't know,
Well,
like at
but
least 100 people to be a bracelet event. Like,
but on the same side, if you're saying like online, you buy into a $500 stud event or whatever, $500 no limit hold'em event, and there's 1,000 people, you're saying that doesn't have the same weight as a $1,500 live event that has 1,000 people. I mean, just
no, a
because I
thousand
can
people
sit
is legit.
uncomfortably, but I mean, on a live event, here's my counter argument. In a live event, what you're telling me is I'm able to put up with the bullshit of sitting uncomfortably and dealing with dealers that may or may not know what the hell they're doing, especially on day one. Day one dealers. And by the way, if you're going to the WSOP, dealers have a color coded system on their lanyards, and the color of their lanyard determines how long they've been at the WSOP or how many years experience dealing. I don't know if you knew that. Did you know that, Wayne?
I did not know that.
Yeah, so if a dealer at the WSOP has I believe it's a green lanyard, and any of our listeners out there, correct me. Green means it's their first year. Black means they've been doing it for over 5 years. So if you're ever curious, why do all the dealers in the 10K tournaments and the 5Ks and higher all have black lanyards? Those are all dealers who've been dealing for at least 5 years. If you're sitting down at the Colossus and you get up on the break and you come back and you find out that your dealer just collected all the chips in the middle of the table and thought that was the end of it, and they've got a green collar, that's because it's their first year dealing. But every color has a different year signifier. So because you're saying online shouldn't have as much value as the fact that I can sit uncomfortably in a chair and then put up with dealers that may or may not know what they're doing, or the frustration of it all, there's things that I like about live poker. Trust me, don't get me wrong. I love reading people live. I'm a more social person live. But there's something to be had about online. Like, because you could be doing 6 other things while doing online, especially during a long, grueling 12, 14-hour tournament, or God only knows when tournaments didn't have an end date and tournaments would literally go until it ended. Like, I remember the Sunday Millions at Poker Stars would end sometime Monday afternoon and everybody would be watching it. But my point is saying that, winning live is more valuable than online. I don't know. Why'd you start offering the bracelet to begin with? That's my counter argument, and if that's the case, it's like, then why are you offering a bracelet in Europe? And why are you offering one in the Bahamas? I don't know. I mean, I should play more online events. I will tell you that. I don't. I usually play 1 or 2 PLO events while I'm playing, which is funny because another little tidbit, if you're going to the WSOP this year, since it is right around the corner and we're going to be talking lots more poker, the only thing they allow you to do while you're playing at a tournament on your phone at the same time is if you're playing a WSOP tournament at the same time, or you're playing on a WSOP app. So if you want to play on whatever poker app you want to play on your phone and the tournament, they will cut you off. They'll fold your hand. Oh, it's WSOP. Then of course there's no collusion. That's fine. You can go ahead and
yeah.
Yeah.
You can't be looking at a solver on your phone or iPad, but hey, as long as you got that WSOP.com app pulled up, you're good to go, Johnny.
You're golden. I mean, and that's okay. Like, they have a right to do that. Both Wayne and I are saying this as we've both been contacted by the WSOP recently. So here we are kind of poking at them a little bit, but yeah, no, that's okay. We're allowed to, though. It's, if you can't be critical of the people around you or like the events around you, then what can you be critical of? And considering we're professionals and we do this for a living, we're allowed to give them a little feedback. They should be able to take it. It's fucking poker. Have thick skin. I don't know what else to tell you.
Yeah, and before we get into another change, you speaking made me think of a point. If you're going to the WSOP and you are going to play a WSOP tournament mainly, you get some inexperienced dealers at cash, but obviously there are only like what 30 to 40 cash tables at the WSOP, whereas the tournament, I mean, you might have 3 events going on. You might have, I don't know, like 4,000 people playing at the exact same time, right? So because of that, there just aren't that many experienced dealers, right? And typically how it works, I don't know if this is confirmed, but it would make sense that this is the case. A lot of the more experienced dealers are going to deal the higher buy-in events, right? Because those are going to have the clientele that they're trying to appease the most. Whereas when you play mixed events, I mean, I remember talking to dealers last year where we asked them their training, right? And a lot of people, they have a good attitude about it. They're like, hey, we're like, hey, what training did you get, if any? They're like, oh no, like they asked if I dealt before. I said yes. And they're like, you're hired, right? So like a lot of these people, I mean, a lot of these dealers, they're dealing, say, like a PLO 8 event, right? PLO high-low, and they've literally don't even know the rules of the game, right? So you're going to get a lot of that. And my biggest tip for you is you're going to experience that in one way or the other. Especially if you play a mixed WSOP event, I think it's much better just to have an open mind and just be like friendly and helpful. I'm not going to call out this famous poker pro, but a couple of years ago, I was playing I believe it was the Big O, or it might have been
with Barha. Go ahead.
I don't know. We'll see. But I was playing, I think, a PLO 8 event, and I was in the 8th seat, and this pro was in the 1 seat, right? So we're right next to the dealer, and this dealer was one of those people that admittedly had basically no clue what she was doing, which is fine, right? They hired her. That's not her fault that they hired her without much experience, but every single time she would make a mistake, this pro was just like shaking his head and is like, oh my God, like he's like trying to call the floor. And he's just making the situation like 10 times worse. Whereas me, I'm basically saying like, okay, yes, like, you know, a lot of times these people aren't going to know about the low. So I say, okay, no, this person over here in seat 6, he has the low. Oh, okay. Thank you so much. And like, just helping them out, like to sit there in their ear and just, you know, begrudgingly like, oh my God, I can't believe they hired this person. Like that does not help anyone. And please, if you're going to be like that, honestly, you should probably just stay home, because it really just doesn't help
playing.
It just doesn't help anyone. It just makes, I mean, the situation is, it is what it is. Like you're at a table with an inexperienced dealer. Their push is not coming for 30 minutes, right? So yeah, maybe 30 minutes later, you get a more experienced dealer. But the reality is like, they're not going to sub in a dealer. Like you're with that dealer for the next 30 minutes. Like you might as well just try to help them. I mean, what do you think?
I'm really curious if I guessed it correctly. That's all I want.
I don't like to call anyone out, but you may be onto something.
Lenny Barha was really mean to those dealers.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But he's famous. He's famous for that. Honestly, I mean, you know,
he really is. I remember last year at the World Series, I had a dealer who was dealing a tournament, and he goes, "Don't worry, I'm the dealer that slapped Sammy Farha and got fired from Legends." And I was like, "You're my hero." What?
Wow.
Yeah, he was having a bad day. He's like, "I ain't afraid to slap a player." I mean, violence is never tolerated, people. But I mean, it was kind of funny because he just said, "I'm the guy who slapped Sammy Farha. I don't have a problem with, you know, doing that." He got fired too, I think, or maybe not. But
yeah,
he was a good dealer. I didn't have any issues with him. But yeah, if a dealer's having an issue at the WSOP, just breathe. But then again, see, I don't know if you can win a live event just because you cannot get tilted by the dealers, if that makes it more valuable than an online event, you know. And
True.
Yeah, that's a pretty viable question. I mean, is online more valuable or less valuable? You have to factor the online community is a good portion of the poker community. So I don't know if it's less valuable. I really don't.
Yeah, that's a good point. But again, just try to be, you know, just try to have a good attitude towards these dealers. It is what it is. There just aren't, you know, 5,000 or 10,000 experienced dealers just sitting around. And as these monster events happen, like the Colossus and the Gladiator, like they're going to be stretched very thin. So inevitably, you're going to probably get a dealer that doesn't know what they're doing. So I think just having a good attitude is the best way to go.
Well, and here's the other thing. Always just plan on making it to a day 2, because on day 2, they don't put in any new dealers, or at least I don't think they do. So as long as you make it to a day 2, then you're done with the poor dealers of day 1 that you had to deal with. And then the problem is solved. I think what do you think is the over under? And I know some of our viewers understand where I'm coming from. Some of our viewers might be like, what the hell? What do you think is the over under for how many years before WSOP replaces all the poker dealers with AI robots? Because here's the thing, with an AI robot that can deal face down to the table, they know all the rules of all the things. They don't have to get paid $25 per down. If you make the argument with poker players, hey, instead of charging you like on what I just started doing my taxes this week. I wish I looked at some of my tournament receipts, but $1,500 buy-in typically had what, $150 admin fee, right? And then like another $50 staff fee, or so I can, whatever fee. And so what if you made to the argument to the players, hey, on day 1, you're going to get Johnny the robot, who's an AI, who knows all the games. He knows the bets amounts. He has cameras, that he can see everything. And instead of us charging you $150 and a $50 staff fee, now we're just going to charge you a $50 rake and a $50 staff fee, because it's going to reduce the cost of what the staff fee would be. So in turn, it would either generate an extra 8.25% for the prize pool, or of course the corporation could just pocket it and say, hey, we got these new dealers, they don't make mistakes, that's the benefit to you all players, suck it up and enjoy. We're still going to take 10%, folks. But what do you think is the over under on that? I'm thinking 3 years.
I was going to say 3 or 4 years, right? Because I mean, we're in 2026 now. They continue to say AI is just going to progress rapidly these next couple of years, especially. And I think, within a couple of years, AI is just going to be so much more widely accepted. And then usually you see the WSOP is kind of a year or 2 behind, right? Like we had talked about in one of our last episodes, how they just added a PLO 5 event, which that's a little late to the game, right? The WPT had a PLO 5 event like 3 years ago. So I would say 3 to 4 years, like 2029 or 2030, I can potentially see them maybe experimenting, like not going full blown, like, hey, this event has AI dealers, but maybe like,
no, I could see it doing it like in a circuit event. Be like, oh, our first circuit event with all AI dealers is going to be, in Tunica, or is going to be in New Orleans or St. Louis or whatever. And just be like, boom, we bring our own dealers. We pack them up in the truck and we unload them.
Yep.
They don't even need a hotel stay. This seems like a win-win for everybody. Why aren't we doing this now? No, go on. Sorry.
More jobs being taken, right? Exactly. But that actually brings me to my next change that potentially could be coming. So Negron, touched on this in his previous video that I mentioned, but a Triton event actually experimented with a chess shot clock, right? So this isn't something that typically is an issue in mixed game tournaments, but obviously the last couple of years there's been a lot of hoopla about the Hold'em tanking, right? You've seen a lot of this about it where, you have 5 or 10 minutes people tanking on inconsequential hands. So this is something they experimented with. And from playing chess, I know as well, a chess shot clock, like for example, I play 3-minute games on chess.com, right? So the way it works is I have 2 ways to win. I can either checkmate my opponent, or if I run out of time, I lose, or if they run out of time, they lose, right? So the chess shot clock, Negreanu likes in favor of the 20 or 30 seconds per action, right? Because if you're a fast player, which most people are, like most people are going to act pretty quickly. If I act fast on every action, but then maybe especially as it gets later stage in the tournament, or it's on the bubble or final table, if I didn't really use my time in the early stages, then I have more time to maybe, tank 2 or 3 minutes for a bigger decision. So what do you think about the chess shot clock potentially being implemented? It won't be implemented this year in the WSOP, but Negreanu is saying that the Triton trying it could lead to the WSOP maybe trying to implement it a year or so down the road.
So 2 things. One, they should implement it at the same time with the robots because they could just watch you and they do the shot clock automatically in their head, and then they can just transmit it to the next robot. That's my first point. Secondly, there's things that I really like about this because for a lot of people, you can, look at a hand and be like, this is an easy muck, move on. The things that I don't like about it is if you do get down to your 3 tables from the button, or not 3 tables, but 3 spots from the bubble, and you have 12 minutes on your shot clock, and they're giving you an additional, 20 seconds per hand, you can really just sit there like pre-flop and just purposefully just sit there. And I don't know. I mean, here's the other thing. I thought about this. What if I'm all in, and then you're watching me not for 1 or 2 minutes, but you're like staring at me for 8 minutes. Like at some point, I'm probably just going to start snoring, like whether I'm bluffing or not. Like seriously, I want somebody to do that to me on a day 2 or something where they got like 7 minutes and they're just in the tank. I'll be like, what? Just wake me up when they're done. I mean, don't get me wrong. The whole let's think about everything and Hold'em, GTO, because they did this and therefore they must have this. I get it. I get why you have to think about it. If you've been playing poker long enough, though, like it should just be automatic. And I understand it's not going to be automatic for everybody. And I understand people are studying GTO. And when you do get into mixed games, you get into draw games like just 7 triple draw, that becomes a little bit more of a consideration, especially in deuce to 7, because I don't know. I mean, some mixed games, like you're going to look at your hand and you're going to respond the same amount of time no matter what. Like that's one of the things I work on when I play any any draw game, whether it's deuce to 7, ace to 5, or Badoogie, is before I look at the last card, if I'm on a draw and I need to hit, I say, regardless of whether or not I hit or I don't hit, I need to have the same facial expression. I mentally repeat that in my brain before I peel the card because I don't want my opponent to stare at me and make a decision. And it does take me a few seconds to say that every time I sit there and I go, I need to mentally make sure no matter what I look down at, my facial expression is the same. And then I just peek down and then I don't make a move, know? But I have a routine. So like if they're giving me 20 seconds per hand to decide on whether or not I'm going to raise, that's enough time. If it banks, though, I guess. I mean, I don't know. I think some people are like excited about this. I think this is something that's not going to affect 99% of poker population. But for the 1%ers who it does affect, the guys who are on the circuit all the time and they're curtailing to their needs, great. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think any rule that they're going to add, there's always going to be somebody that tries to use it maliciously, right? Like, like somebody might save all their time for if they're on the bubble and then they just wait 10, they just use their 10 minutes. It's strategy at one point, right? It's strategy. I mean,
I would literally, if I was on the bubble and deciding to go all in, regardless of what the event was, and I knew I was going to call and I had 10 minutes worth of time, I think I'd probably order 3 or 4 drinks. Like legit. I just order a drink and just be like, oh man, can you bring me some popcorn too? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm purposefully just going to be like, hey guys, if you guys want to go on a break, I'm not going to make a decision for 8 more minutes,
Yeah.
So
it's a fine line between regular strategy versus using it maliciously, right? Like I remember last year we played one of the milestone tournaments, right? And then me and you were at the same table somehow with 100 people. We always end up at the same table somehow. But then remember there was that British guy that he was about to be in the big blind and he like saw, okay, I'm about to be in the big blind. He literally like did a little loop around and then he came back and you called him out on it. You go, oh yeah. Oh, did you have to go run to the bathroom there? And then you kept giving him shit. But the reality is every single person at the series ended up doing that, right? Where if they see they're about to be big blind, it's your strategy to say, no, I'm going to wait. Like I would rather come in on the button than why would I want to come in right on the big blind, right? So
you know what this really reminds me of?
What's that?
So when I had my meetup game in Chicago 2 weeks ago, we were going over the small blind jackpot rules and somebody's like, What about if, and I said, I'm going to stop you right there. I said, the only fucking place in the world where Wayne and I had to come up with 3 pages of goddamn instructions and special rules on the small blind jackpot was in fucking Las Vegas, Nevada. We go do it in LA at the Hustler. No one had any problems with it. We go do it in Texas. Texas, they like to gamble. They don't give 2 shits. They're like, yeehaw, let's go. Giddy up, boys. We can do it fucking anywhere we want. We go to Vegas. Holy shit. Do we have to come up with every little nitpicky rule out there? Why do so many goddamn angle shooters live in not Texas, but in Vegas? Like, seriously, I understand rules are rules, but like, holy balls. I'm sorry for saying that, but like the thing on the shot clock, and yeah, I mean, I get Martin Cabrillo's going to sit there and he's going to harass you and talk and everything else, you know, and this is something I told, I think it was my student this past week. I don't know if you know this, Wayne, but this probably won't shock you, but I carry, especially in my winter coat, I carry a pair of earplugs, brand new earplugs. And I do it so now when I'm playing poker and people complain about my voice, because I'm a social person. And here's the other thing. I like to fucking talk to people while they're at the poker table. Why? Because it lets me remember who you are. So that way, when I play you a year and a half from now, I can remember who you are and how you played. But in any case, I bring, you know, earplugs with me. So when I was in Chicago at Rivers, this guy was talking about how I complained. And I literally pulled out a pair of earplugs. And I'm like, sure, I bring these for people just like you in case I'm talking too much. I said, but I'll go take a smoke break. If you want them, they're yours. I said, I'll come back, you know, and you're more than happy to have them. And then he ended up moving over to seat 1, which was across the seat table. But my point is, these little nitpicky rules and all these little things, it just reminds me of that in Las Vegas was the only place we had to come up with all these rules, you know. So I mean, whatever happened to poker just being like, just play cards, man. You know, who needs to sit here and think and tank? Poker used to be like, I'm just going to put my balls out there and just be like, mine are bigger than yours. Let's go. He-Man poker. Now it's like GTO and oh my God, let's check and flow and So, I don't know, dude. I've been having some things because I've been looking at, of course, I'm doing my taxes, so I'm looking at all my charts and all my shit and way more in depth. And I'm like, wow, I was a really profitable no limit hold'em player. Like every time I sat down and played no limit hold'em, I was just crushing it. It's like, why? Because I just do He-Man poker. If I've got the nuts, I just bet the shit out of it. And they're like, why is he betting all in? I call. It's like, I don't know. I told my student this week, I said, be really exploitive the next time you play hold'em. Just play them like they're your bitch and just make them your bitch and just bet out as much as donk bet a lot. I said, start donk betting. I said, it really throws them off when you donk bet. They'll be like, why is he betting into me? I was the one that raised.
Yeah. Anything you could do to throw your opponents off is great. But yeah, the way what you just mentioned is what Negron echoed in his video. He said back in the 90s and early 2000s when he was coming up, you didn't need these rules. You didn't need shot clocks. Like people just bet, like everyone acted within 10 seconds. But then once you have one person that kind of ruins it for everyone. And yeah, the shot clock thing, I think there's always going to be someone that can maliciously use it. But I do think the chess shot clock makes more sense than the, oh, you get 20 seconds per action, right? Because, okay, 20 seconds should be enough for every action for the most part, right? But if you're in a key situation, you're on the bubble, you know, you're second in chips and the guy to your left is the only person bigger chip stack than you, and he puts you in a tough spot. Yeah, there might be an occasional situation when you need 2, 3, 4 minutes to try to sit there and read an opponent.
Yeah, but here's the other small counter argument. And first of all, I think it's good overall, this chess shot clock thing. You don't want how much time you have left to be a factor in the decision of when you're calling for your tournament life. So you don't want to be like, oh my God, I got 30 seconds left. What do I do? What do I do? I got 30. Oh no, now I got 25 seconds. But I understand it's a factor because yeah, otherwise people are just going to sit there forever. So I'm hoping that they'll implement something like this, but I think when they do the AI robots, that's probably the best time to implement it. So maybe the under is under 3 years that they start doing it.
Yeah, I think it would make a lot of sense to, once they implement the AI robots potentially dealing, then they can just add the shot clock in very easily, right? Because the AI will get to a point at that point where they can say, okay, boom, it was on Josh. Okay, his 20-second normal timer is going. If he uses more time than that, his time is done. And once he acts, so I think it'll just make sense that they'll kind of be hand in hand with the two.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So another thing that we've had a lot of people ask us about, and you have more experience with this than me, is staking, right? So I had told the story, I think one of the first episodes of the podcast, where this was like 2 or 3 years ago at the Orleans, where I busted out of a horse tournament very quickly for a limit tournament, and I was playing with a guy named Clint, really cool guy. He came to one of our meetup games in Austin years back, and he saw that I busted out, and he was like, hey, what's going on? I was like, I'm not really feeling it. I'm probably just gonna, head home, maybe recharge and come back. He's like, oh, well, I can put you in. And I was like, I don't know. But basically he gave me a deal where he put me in for this $600 buy-in, and I only had to pay him back if I cash. So if I don't cash, I don't pay him anything. I was like, okay, this is a pretty good deal. So I ended up buying in, and I got back to the same table, and they ended up calling triple draw. And I think the first hand I got dealt a wheel draw, 7-4-3-2, the best possible draw you can have. And literally I cap it, and this was later stage of the tournament. I ended up losing, long story short, like 5 minutes, which is pretty insane and pretty impossible to do in a limit tournament. I remember walking by him, and he's like, oh, how you doing? I was like, I busted. And like, I felt so bad, not even just, for like the $600, but like I felt so bad because he had confidence in me enough to give me this really good deal. And I felt like such a loser that I busted in that short of a time frame in a limit tournament. So yeah, long story short, I really don't like staking, but
I'll never forget that too, because I remember talking to you about it. I'm like, here, right afterwards, one of your viewers stakes you, and you only last 20 minutes.
Oh my God, dude.
He must have just thought you were like, wee.
Yeah. He probably thought like, oh, well, Wayne's playing with free money. He's just going to be like a donk and fuck it off real quick. But so long story short, I won't get staked anymore, because I found out from that story that I actually hate losing other people's money more than my own money. But how do you feel about staking?
Yeah. Oh man, that was funny. I've had people stake me before. And I've staked other people. It varies. Usually if you're staking somebody, just pretend like you're lighting the money on fire. Like if you look at it any other way, it's okay. Like when you're a poker player and you're playing for a living, you're going to run into other poker players. They're eventually going to go broke. You're eventually going to go broke. Occasionally we try to help each other out, where we're like, hey, we're going to stake you for this. But if you're staking anybody for any reason, just pretend like the money's on fire, and if it comes back to you, it's a bonus. If you do it with any other intention, you're doing it the wrong way. Like if you're like, here's $500, I'm staking you in this tournament, you better bring me back at least 800. Go get them, Tiger. And a 250 buy-in, so they get 2 buy-ins. It's like, not necessarily. They could just get the short end of it, and nothing you can do. So yeah, that's my philosophy on staking. Now there is staking when you're doing a longer term relationship where you have makeup and things of that nature, like you're in a stable, where if you've lost $8,000, whatever your profit goes towards that before you start making some money. And there's also staking when you're a house player, which is really common. And this is, we didn't even talk about this, like this might come up, but house players are really common in the state of Texas. And with everything that's going on with Texas right now with the lodge, because I'm sure, it's going to be months before anything's filed, if anything at all. So maybe it's nothing, but I do believe the lodge yesterday announced they are laying off all their employees because they have no other choice. It was either yesterday or this morning. But my point is when you get rid of safe accepted legalized gambling, safe, poker, and it goes underground, you promote a lot of shady shit that happens, because you could have a house that is taking $100 in rake or $150 in rake, and then they have a house player that they're staking, and then that house player has to give them 50% of the winnings, but they're really there just to generate rake. And I know a lot of people who are listening right now, I know a lot of house guys are probably screaming at me and turning off the whatever app they're watching us on. But a lot of the players are like, "What the hell is this? Is this real?" Yeah, if you're in a lot of various different places, it's not just Texas. Don't get me wrong. I don't mean to solo them out, but I know it's a little bit more prevalent in Texas because the rake tends to be a little bit higher in Texas. That you have a lot more house guys, but you can still have them anywhere in the United States where you have one or two players who are playing with the house's money just to generate rake and keep the game full. So if you're a player and you're playing in these house games, just beware. But as from a player's perspective, if you're a player playing in one of the house games, you're free rolling it. Like, you've got the best lifestyle right there, because you're free rolling on the house's money. If you lose, you don't lose anything. If you win, you got to give like 50 or 60% to the house, which is perfectly fine because it's more than what you started off with the night before. So I understand it's part of our economy, if you will, with some of us. But if you're going to house games, one of the questions I tend to ask or try finding out is, are there any house players playing in the house game? And you don't have to make it like public to the other players, because usually the host doesn't want to make it public on who the house players are. But that's just something to be aware when it comes to staking. And I have a few students who are in the beneficial side of that situation where they're the house player. So it happens.
Yeah, I think if you're getting staked, I have little experience with it. My buddy Mark, who's been on the podcast, I staked him at one point. He staked me at one point. But whether I was staking or being staked, I wanted it to be a very short-term thing, right? Like I would tell like Mark when I was staking him, like, I want you to be able to play on your own, right? Because I want you to be able to get all your winnings. And same way, like when I was being staked, I wanted to get off the stake as soon as possible, because anytime I would book a win, I would say, man, if only I had 100% of myself, I would be winning X amount versus this. So I personally don't like it for cash, but I think for tournaments, it makes a little bit more sense, right? I mean, with the series being about 2 months away, let's say you're a big O player, right? And you want to play a lot of people will get staked for the main event, the $10,000 buy-in, but maybe you say, hey, I'm a big O player. I want to play the $10,000 big O events, but I don't have $10,000 to allocate to this tournament. That might be one you say, okay. And it's probably better to go through friends and people that you know. And there is sites you can go through, like Stake Kings, I believe is one of them. There's a couple others, whatever. But I believe it's better to go through friends. That way, like if you ended up getting a deep run and make six figures, yeah, you're going to feel shitty that, okay, you don't get to keep all that money. But at least if it's with friends, you say, okay, at least I'm giving, my friends this money, as opposed to just some random people online that happen to, put some money in for me. So I think it makes sense from that point of view.
I mean, and the nice thing is when you're doing it with friends, you're keeping it within your internal poker community,
Yeah.
Where if you're doing it on Stake Kings or whatever the case may be, it's just whoever put it in there. But I mean, you do have markup now, and that is one of those things where, like, I keep going back and forth because, I mean, I'm buying in $30,000 in tournaments for the WSOP. If I sold 50% of it at a 30% markup, I would only be buying $6,000 out of my own money to play $30,000 worth of tournaments. Like, from the player's perspective, that's great. From the investor's perspective, not so much.
Yeah.
But so it's one of those things where it's like I have an internal argument within myself whether or not I should offer that up to the public or anything like that. So far, I've still decided on no. But you never know. I mean, I could continue this downswing that I'm in right now for the last 2.5 weeks, and it could just last 6.5 weeks. And then it might be, hey, everybody, let's take the professor. Such is poker. If you don't hate the great game of poker, and you don't want to quit it at least once a month, you are not doing it right, people. Let me tell you that right now. But
Yeah. I think another thing with staking is be clear on how many bullets you're going to fire, right? When we were going over this, I remember years ago, I think it was like 2 or 3 years ago, Rampage ended up firing, I think maybe it was the main event at the WPT at the Win in December, and he got staked, or people bought his action for what they thought was the whole tournament, but I guess he ended up busting the first couple bullets and then rebought. And I think he won it, or maybe he got like final table or whatever.
Yeah,
and everyone
he ended up winning it. He busted like right at end of registration, and then he decided to rebuy. He could not post it publicly, even though I give Rampage some shit. But I'll tell you this: he could not post it publicly. He had 30 minutes left to make a decision to rebuy, so he decided to rebuy, and then he ships it. And all the people that staked him for his first bullet didn't get that. But what he did do for them is he refunded them on his first bullet. How nice is that?
Yeah, that was a good way to make up for a bad situation. But I think, yeah, if you're going to do that, you just want to be clear with people like, hey, this is for the first bullet only, or, I may rebuy, right? Because a lot of those people probably saw, oh shit, he won. I got 10% of his action, and like, oh, actually, no, that was his second bullet or third bullet. So,
oh yeah,
good for him to kind of make up for it.
Yeah, and we've got Jedi saying that he thinks markup's perfectly fine, so as long as it's reasonable for both parties. I would agree with that. I think that's a reasonable statement. I do think 30% is a little much, but I will tell you with the new 90% tax deduction law, I think you're going to see a lot more 30% markups, even though I don't think from an investor's perspective, it's a very positive EV. Maybe, I don't know. I'd have to look at specific players, but I think in the long run, 30% markup is probably not profitable for most investors. That's just my guess.
Yeah. So last thing on staking, when we were talking about this, I thought of another funny staking story. So you ended up staking or buying some action for a very well-known pro out of South Florida. I'm not going to say his name, but you know who I'm talking about. But you ended up buying his action or part of his action, right? And I think
we can't even say what his name rhymes with because it's a really unique name. Go on.
Yeah. But you ended up buying part of his action, and I think he booked a loss for the series or whatever, but you can tell the rest of the story, but I thought it was super funny.
Yeah, so always be clear on when you're buying action, what the fuck you're buying. Pardon my vulgarity, but I sent $2,000 to a very well-known pro, and he bought $200,000 worth of tournaments, and he cashed in about $100,000 of them. Well, so the way that his packages works is you send him money, and then he buys tournaments based on that, and then he gives you a percentage. So, okay, I should get, you bought in for 200,000, you cashed 100,000. I should probably get half my money back, right? I mean,
you would think.
I mean, yeah. No, I didn't get any of my money back. That extra 1,000 went towards food and expenses. So,
wow.
Matter of fact, I got zero back. So I did not realize that part of the staking was he had to be profitable in order to get any of my money back. Which I guess is a different way of doing it, but I did not understand that. I just thought, I'm giving you $2,000 if you buy $100,000 worth of tournaments and you cash for 200,000. Well, you're going to give me $4,000 back. So now I'm kind of curious if he was profitable and he did buy in for $200,000 in tournaments and won 400,000. What are we giving me back? Just $2,000 back? And been like, oh, the other $2,000 was for expenses.
So it reminds me
deal for this fucking guy.
You've of course seen the movie Casino, right?
Yes.
So it reminds me of the scene when Joe Pesci goes to collect, and the guy was like, Joe Pesci like shows up. He's like, yeah, I'm here to collect. And the guy goes, oh, I thought you were laying. He goes, no, I was taking. Oh, really? I thought no, I was taking, right? So it sounds like a good situation for this guy. He basically gets staked. If he loses, he doesn't pay you shit. And it sounds like if he won, who knows? Maybe he doesn't pay you at all. So I think the lesson here is whether you are staking somebody or getting staked, just be very clear on all the stipulations around it, because these are, this guy that Josh bought some action for, he's very reputable. If we mentioned his name, a lot of you would know who he is.
I can't remember if he's got $2 million in mob or 3 million or yeah, it was just really shocking. And of course I've played with him in fucking tournaments since then. And I don't hold any grudges against him. I just was fucking confused. And I've spent worse things. I've spent $2,000 on worse decisions than that.
Yeah.
So I'll just.
It's just not a good look. There's a saying that goes, reputation takes a lifetime to build and only a second to destroy. So I just don't think it benefits this player to. I mean, he's been in the industry for a long time. He's very well known. I don't think it benefits him to kind of screw people over for a couple $1,000s to tarnish his name. So that's just me.
I don't know if I was screwed over. Maybe it was just a total misunderstanding that he had to be profitable. I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. But yeah, when he bought in for $200,000 in tournaments and cashed in 100,000, I'm like, oh, so you're giving me $1,000 back? And he's like, no. You're not getting anything back.
But even if he factored the expenses, right? Like, okay, let's say he's out for the series the whole time, which I think this player usually is, right? So, okay, correct. So he cashed for 100,000 after buying it for 200,000. Even if he says, okay, I'm going to deduct my expenses, what is the most? I mean, other than like hookers and blow, like what is the most his expenses could be?
You have to be doing hookers and blow every day for $100,000, even in Vegas. Like,
yeah,
because I think eventually you're just going to get a multi-day discount. I don't know. I mean, for a single person, like, or did he take his whole family and buddies? No. If you're out in Vegas for 2 months, yeah, I mean, it's going to cost you probably 10 to 15 grand. But yeah, you're right. Take that minus the deductions. Oh, there's 85 grand left. You get, you get 42.5% of your original purchase back. Here's $850. Yeah, that would make sense in all the worlds that aren't poker. In the world of poker, because there's some things in the world of poker where you're just like, yeah, that makes sense. In the world of poker, it just makes sense that somehow I don't get anything, and that's fine. But again, as Wayne said, make sure you're very clear up front, because otherwise you might be giving somebody who I think he might even have a bracelet too. I can't remember if he does, but you're going to give somebody $2,000 or $3,000 in a staking deal and then not even understand what the hell you have. And yours truly is, I guess, capable of not understanding what I signed up for. So that's perfectly a fair assessment. So that I was going to say that ties into our next subject. I don't know if you wanted to dive into it about explaining to the family about being a pro, because that's something where they're just like, I don't understand the poker world. And you're like, yeah, it's just like, I'll give you an example. My wife was having a disagreement with somebody over something that was going to cost us essentially about $1,600. And eventually I was just like, just pay it. I'm like, it's not worth the argument. Like, eventually in the world of poker, don't get me wrong, everything's about dollars and cents, but eventually it's like my fucking sanity is more important than the $1,600. Just pay it. Don't worry about it. Move on.
Yeah.
So I completely forgot that I had even given that gentleman $2,000 for a stake. And that's absolutely hilarious that you brought it up, because I totally forgot. And now I'm like, not really pissed about it. I'm just like, all right.
Yeah.
That's just how that works,
I didn't mean to bring up bad memories. I just, as we were talking about staking, and I remember telling me like,
it was perfect. Cause it's like every once in a while as a poker pro, not only in hands, but even through people, sometimes you're going to get dinged on the nose, right? Like, I know I have people who owe me money. That's normal in the poker world. And yeah, every once in a while you're just going to get dinged on the nose where you're like, oh, well, that's never getting paid. You just rip that one off.
But yeah, as far as what you brought up, explaining to people what you do for a living, it is very difficult because it's just so unique of a profession. I guess the people that can most relate to it would be maybe real estate agents, right? Or people that work on commission, right? I worked commission sales. I know you did, you still do real estate. I've done real estate. So I would say they maybe can relate a little bit because you are going to have really good months in real estate. You're going to have really bad months in real estate, depending on how the market and other factors. So it is difficult.
But there's a huge difference when somebody says, "What do you do for a living?" and you say, "I do real estate." They go, "Oh, okay." Where you say, "I play poker for a living," and they go, "What? Do you really? Like, do you pay your bills with that?" And you're like, "Yeah." No. Do you pay all your bills with that? And you're like, "Yeah." And they're like, "No. Not just like your weed bill and your light bill. Do you pay like groceries and can you travel?" And then you're like, "Yeah, I do all of that stuff." That's my favorite. When my wife and I were doing Dancing with Our Stars for the local charity for hospice up here, I'll never forget. I went in to go get my photo taken because they had a photographer, and it wasn't the photographer because the photographer knew my wife was a photographer, but it was her assistant. And she goes, "Well, what do you do for a living?" I said, "Oh, I'm play poker." And she goes, "Oh, you're the poker player. Do you really do that? Do you really pay all your? Is that what you really do?" And then she was like, "What do you really do?" And I just, that's my favorite right there. You give me the what do I do? What do I really do? People, I have a degree from the University of Notre Dame and I play poker for a living. I don't know what else to tell you. Sometimes money is well spent if you never see somebody again. Yeah, the only problem with that, John, is I see this guy at poker tables in tournaments. So I'm just jovial and happy with him anyways, and it's perfectly fine. I legit have no hard feelings towards him, but yeah, it's absolutely hilarious. You're right. If you have to spend some money not to see somebody again, I believe that's very valuable. But yeah, that's my favorite. Is that your favorite, Wayne? When people are like, "Do you really do that? Is that how you really pay your bills?" And then they even do the tone too, like you're fucking 4 years old. Like, "What are you doing, lady? I'm a grown man. Like, why are you talking to me that way?"
I find it best just to be a little vague with people, and I guess I'm willing to explain it a little bit more because you could tell from people's tone. Like you just mentioned that lady when she's like, "Oh, do you really do that?" Like obviously she has a very pessimistic tone. But if somebody has like an optimistic tone, they say, "Oh, wow, that's really cool. Like what, tell me about that." Then I'm a little bit more willing to say, "Okay, cool. Like I play poker. I have students I coach. I play in an online club. I get paid to show up to different places like the Venetian and all these other places." But if they have this pessimistic tone, I just try to give short answers and just try to be done with it, because those people, like, you can tell that no matter what you say, they're just always going to have this like attitude like, "Oh, really? Like, yeah, he must be like secretly a drug dealer because there's no way like he makes his money from playing poker." So
I mean, I think that might be part of like the raid with the lodge, like 1.35 million. They've got to be dealing drugs out of that place. That can't be from the rake for the whole month of February, is it? Like it probably is. That's probably what it was the rake for February. Like what the fuck, people? I shouldn't say rake. I'm sorry. That was probably for membership fees and
memberships.
Dues. Yeah. Memberships. But no, my bad. But yeah, it's one of those things where I'm just like, I don't know. I'm like, yeah. Or the other question we get asked a lot, the most popular one is what's the most amount of money you've won? And of course, I tell people that what you should ask is what's the most amount of money you've lost, because you're going to find out way more information from somebody than what's the most you ever won. But yeah, if it's somebody that is at the poker table or in the poker room, they usually have a positive vibe about it. But if it's like somebody I ran into the gas station or somebody's just finding out about me and they're like, "Oh, you're that poker player, but is that what you really do?" Like in social circles, we still do not have the stigma, pardon me. The social, we're not part of the upper echelons. Maybe that's why I wear the top hat, is so everybody will think I'm more proper.
Exactly. But yeah, that kind of leads into relationships in poker, which we've touched on a little bit in previous episodes, but it's not the easiest thing to date while doing. But I think similar to like we had Brenda on about a month or so ago. She's a woman that we met at the Diplo event, and she talked about relationships and how she believes that like when you're meeting someone on a first date or whatever, the best course of action is to be open and honest about your intentions, right? So if you're just looking to hook up, cool, like tell people that. If you want something more serious, tell people that. So I think the same can be applied for relationships. You know, when you're meeting someone new and you are a poker player, you just have to be very clear with them and say, listen, it's almost my first wife in a way, right? Like you're almost at times going to be the side chick, even if I don't have any other chick. Like poker is my main girl, because in order to make it, you really have to dedicate 100% to it, right? And like, especially like I chatted with my wife earlier, and she knows that, okay, in June, like I told her this year that I might possibly come back in June, right? Like, because, you know, in previous years, I would go for a week or two, come back home, because it's only about a 5-hour drive from Vegas to San Diego for me, and then I would go back. But she just said, you know, I'm just going to, you know, write it off that I'm probably not going to see you in June, and that's okay. Like, I'm going to do my own thing. If I see you, great. If not, then oh well. So like, you really have to just be clear and honest with whoever you're dating, because there are going to be times that you work really long hours and you are legitimately at the poker, you know, the casino or the poker room, and they might think, oh, well, is this guy like hooking up with someone behind my back, or like, what's the deal? But no, that's just the nature of the business. These hours are weird, and people might get jealous if they don't know what's going on.
Oh yeah, for sure. And yeah, it's just, you really have to be, like she said, Brenda, you have to be open and honest and upfront with people. Like the thing I did with my current wife, as I just said, I'm a poker player. That's who I am. You're just going to have to learn to accept that and move on from it. Most, if you're a guy playing poker for a living, most women prefer security over chaos. Some men like myself thrive on chaos. Like I am really good in a chaotic situation. I've been told that a number of times when my boat was going down in Lake Superior with my nephew and 6-foot rolling waves. By the way, you die of hypothermia if you are in Lake Superior for 45 minutes or so by being shipwrecked. But in any case, everybody tells me I handle things greatly under lots of chaos and mass. Maybe that's why I like PLO too. Who knows? But yeah, I don't know. You have to be clear on your intentions. If you're in a relationship and you're playing poker, one of the things I tell my students is don't get in a relationship for the first 5 years that you play poker, because first you got to find out all of the shit that you're going to deal with. You're going to deal with the ups and downs. You're going to deal with going broke. You're going to be dealing with going on hellacious runs, both good and bad. And, one of the best tournament poker players I know is broke as shit. He's somebody that I have an open invite to stake on different poker tournaments. And I even told him, I said, you should come out for Vegas just for the mini mystery. I said, I'll give you a full steak, buy you the whole 9 yards. You'll get your steak sauce, your steak, your butter, sour, whatever. All the things you need to go with your steak, sauteed mushrooms and onions, the whole 9 yards. I'll pay for it all. Mm-hmm. And but he's super broke because when he went on a hot streak and he had that huge amazing run, he went on vacation a lot instead of doing good bankroll management, which is, let me just plan in case I go on a cold streak. And yeah, once he went on a cold streak, all the money was gone. Now he's broke and he drives an Uber.
Yep.
So yeah, have your intentions with your relationship. And I'm not saying that if you're a girl out there dating a poker player that they're going to be the next great Uber driver instead of poker player. But what I am saying is all poker players goes through ups and downs. Having a relationship while you're going through those ups and downs takes a lot on the relationship. And it just, even with family, like when we watched the Mike Matusow movie, and he went to his brother and he was talking to his brother, and his brother's like, Mike, I'm not giving you another $50,000. And like in the poker community, you and I are like, oh, 50 grand. He's just buying tournaments. Like anybody who like works 9 to 5, they're like $50,000. Like, Jesus Christ, that's a lot of money. Right. And he's just like, I just need 50 grand just to play for the summer. So what does he do? He goes to Daniel Negreanu and he borrows it. But then Greno obviously is like, oh, you need a stake? Here you go, buddy. Let me know. You know what I'm saying? But again, in the poker community, throwing around 5, 10, 20, depending on what level you're at, that's normal. That's perfectly normal. Most people are like, what are you doing walking around with $5,000 in your pocket? And you're like, it's a Tuesday. What?
Yeah, I think, well, I know that money becomes relative in poker, right? So yeah, 50 grand to Mike Mattisau is probably like, oh, that's just like a couple high roller events or like a couple buy-ins. But to an average person, like 50 grand, that represents maybe more than what they make in the entire year. So I think another key is when you're in a relationship is it can be very extreme to tell people exactly what's going on all at one time, right? Like, so I'll give you an example. So when I lived in Columbus, Ohio, this was probably like 2013. I used to play at the Hollywood there in downtown Columbus, Ohio, and we would go every Friday night because my wife and I love crab legs, and they had a buffet where you can get all you can eat crab legs for 25, or it was like 25 or like $30, but even $30 at that time for unlimited crab legs, that's amazing. I think now for one set of crab legs, you're paying probably more than that, right? So we would go there for that. We got there early, and I was like, I don't usually play table games. So I was like, I'm going to play a little blackjack. So I bought it for $200, and it was a quarter minimum, as they typically raise the limits on a Friday night. So I'm betting a quarter. I think I won like my first 4 hands. So I'm up $100, and then I lose a couple of hands in a row. My girlfriend, now wife at the time, is like, babe, what are you doing? Like, rack up. Cause she just saw me lose like $50. And for her, she's always worked kind of like a normal 9 to 5. I don't know. She's probably making 20, $25 an hour at that point. That's like, I just lost 2 hours worth of work in the last couple of hands. She's like, yeah, babe, rack up. So I realized from that point that I'm never going to gamble in front of my wife, because what I think about the money is much different to her. Right. So the same way, if you're dating someone that has never gambled and works a normal job for a living, you saying, hey, I went to the series and lost 20 grand, or I just blew 2 grand last night, like, that's very extreme to tell the average person. So I think it's better to kind of peel back the layers of the onion slowly, especially starting out. As you get to know someone, like, I know that I've referenced it before, you're very open with your wife, where, the first day on like a Chicago meetup, I remember on like a Thursday, you lost like 4 grand at Rivers, and you called Jolene. She's like, oh, how's your day, honey? Well, I lost 4 grand in 2 hours at Rivers. And she's like, oh man. Like, and I remember telling you after you hung up, I said, I would never tell my wife that. Not that I'm like hiding anything from her, but like, I'm going to tell her after the trip and after I get back, like, how the whole trip went. Whereas you have a different approach, and you'll tell her like daily updates and whatever. So I think,
well,
not telling
first
everyone.
Of all, here's one thing that you probably know or don't know. Maybe at the time you didn't, but I don't talk to my wife every day when I'm on a poker trip. Like when I'm in Vegas, I might talk to her like twice a week. So when I do talk to her, I just talk to her, oh, this is all the shit that's been going on, just to give her catch up. But we have my first wife, I had to call in like every day, twice a day, sometimes 3 times a day, whatever. My current wife, that just weighs too much on me personally. So now I'm just like, I'm way better off of, let me work, and then I'll touch in with you every once in a while. And if you need me, just text me and let me know. But I operate more efficiently that way. But it takes a while to figure that out, But yeah, that when I tell my wife, hey, I just lost 4 grand last night, it's usually because I haven't talked to her in a couple of days. Sorry.
Yeah. So for sure.
Or you're gonna tell BB at the end of the trip, hey, this is how the whole trip went. Never mind that I screwed off. And you're right. The regular world, like, the reason why I was giggling is because when you're talking about, a couple $1,000s here, I'm like, oh, the last time I was on TCH on our live stream, we did a $600 flip at the end, and it's just like $600.
Yeah. Exactly.
Where most people be like, that's a week's worth of work. What the hell are you doing? It's like, you do get a little bit more numb to money on poker, but you understand that, the world evolves around money, but eventually I think what happens is you start looking at the money a little bit differently, not as money. You just start looking at it as like time. Like if somebody's willing to come to work for me for whatever, $50 an hour, $100 an hour, I just look at money as time increments now. I don't know. I'm weird like that.
Yeah, and I wanted to touch on something you mentioned before, where you have your friend who had a good run for a while and then ended up going on vacations and ultimately went on a bad run and now is dead broke because they probably didn't prepare by putting money off to the side. You see this with athletes all the time, right? Like I think Adrian Peterson was somebody I heard about recently. I mean, future Hall of Fame running back. He's one of only like 7 or 8 running backs ever to run for 2,000 yards. I think he has like the single game rushing record too, like almost 300 yards. But he's a player that probably made, I don't know, like 100-something million in his career, but didn't put anything off to the side. So poker, you have to kind of treat it the same way because you are going to have really good runs and you are going to have really bad runs, especially if you're a tournament player. Tournaments are the highest of highs and the lowest of lows, as we've talked about many times on this podcast. So I think that leads us to, we've touched on this a little bit, but like saving tips for the WSOP, right? So I remember funny story, like 3-4 years ago, the first year that me and you stayed at the WSOP together, we stayed at the Horseshoe for like a week, right? And we ended up going to Walmart the first day and we're carrying like 3 or 4 bags each of Walmart groceries. And we're walking through, we're passing like all the who's who in poker. And it was a funny moment because, you know, you almost have to kind of fake it before you make it. Like that's a way we can save money because we maybe spent $100-$150 on groceries for the week, where if you don't do that,
$115. And I'll never forget, because we were walking by like Phil Ivey and Helmuth and Negranu, and here we are carrying fucking bags of groceries going through the Horseshoe. And I just thought, you know, it's a humbling reminder that I'm sure those guys looked at us and said, those are some poker players that are staying and trying to save a few bucks because they've all been there. Every single one of them has been there. You know what I mean? But you're right. Like it is a little bit humbling when you think about like now where we stay in a huge house and then we get a shitload of food and a bunch of people that come join us. But even that's still humbling too, because we're still saving money by having a separate place. But go on about your topic. You're talking about pointers on the WSOP.
Yeah. So really, you want to do everything you can to save as much money because it's super expensive there, right? I was watching Ryan DePaulo's video, one of his videos earlier, and he said, yeah, you know, when you're Ubering to the strip, like just have your Uber driver stop off at like 7-Eleven or a gas station and literally buy a couple water bottles because the casinos are going to, you know, rake you over the head with $12, $15 for a bottle of water. And he's, you know, over exaggerating a little bit, but really honestly not that much because that's how crazy some of these things are. You know, there's the $10 hot dog, there's the $5 banana, right? So if you don't go to Walmart or any grocery store and buy your groceries for the week, you're inevitably going to buy this $10 hot dog. You're going to pay $20, $22 for a shitty turkey sandwich, right? So you want to definitely save where you can. And
well, you know, and here's the other thing. If it is your first time coming to Vegas for the series and you're like, oh, I'll just be at a tournament table, I'll just order Uber Eats. You cannot order Uber Eats. You cannot order any DoorDash or any of that other shit because of all the unions. So it becomes a little bit of a problem, especially when you start having dinners and stuff like that. But yeah, pack your own food is a big thing. When we were at the hotel, we did like tuna fish packets that we would mix up with mayonnaise and make them into sandwiches, or peanut butter and jelly. Used to sit really well. So yeah, that's a pretty common thing. You know, it's just part of life of being a life of a grinder. And at the same token, though, if you are grinding and you find somebody who's like, oh, I need a place to stay, you know, and you know them and they're a friend of yours, be like, hey, crash on the floor. Like, people don't give a shit. That's the thing when you're in Vegas, especially the first or second time for the series, you're not spending much time in the hotel room. Like, the amount of time in the hotel room is so you can use the bathroom, you can get some shut eye, and then that's about it. For us, because we're not in a fucking hotel, we're in a house. It's our own sanctuary. It's totally different. Like, for us, being able to stay in a mansion with a pool And even though there's like 10 other people with us, it doesn't even matter. The fact that we're away from the strip and you just get away from all the fluorescent lights, and you have an outdoor kitchen and an outdoor backyard and a place you can just enjoy yourself, even though it's 100 degrees outside, it really helps your mental status, unlike being stuck in a hotel. So I know there's some guys who are like, oh, I just really like being stuck there at the horseshoe because I'm there the whole time. It's like that really does wear you down. I mean, going back and forth wears you down a little bit too. But the other thing is when you're staying on the strip, all you're doing is eating food on the strip, and everything on the strip is just so goddamn expensive. Like
Yeah.
Vegas is not your friendly come visit us and drop $1,000 on a vacation anymore. It's like you're coming for the weekend. We want $1,000 to $2,000 a day, and yeah, they've overpriced a shitload of people. But yeah, if you're coming to Vegas for the series, go to the grocery store, go to CVS, go to Walmart. Absolutely.
Yeah, lodging with other people. Like before I met you and I would go to the series, I ended up staying at a kind of a basic hotel off the strip where I would pay maybe like $80 a night, as opposed to at the Horseshoe or Paris, you're paying what, unless you play slots and you get comped rooms, you're probably paying like $200 or $300 a night, right? And if you're going for a weekend, okay, cool, maybe that's fine. But if you're going there for a week or two, that starts adding up. Plus, you add in the food and you add in everything else. Like, you really want to keep your expenses to a minimum, especially if you're somebody like our friend Gary, who you saw at your meetup game a couple weeks ago. He's somebody that's been working for years, but eventually wants to try to branch into poker. And one of the easiest ways for him to do that is to keep his expenses low, and then that way he can realistically see, like, okay, how much can I actually look to profit from poker, right? So I think, yeah, lodging and food are your two biggest costs.
Yeah, the other thing is if you're driving in, try getting a platinum Caesars card, because they charge you like $100 a week for parking, just for parking.
Yeah.
So if you have any, like, I know there's a lot of e-bikes and stuff like that people will bring, or like those little single rolling wheels that Andy brought last year that can go up to like 30 miles an hour, and they have like a 2-mile battery life. A lot of traveling dealers will actually have those foldable scooters with batteries, because they're like, oh, it goes up to a 5-mile radius and I'm just staying 2 miles off the strip. So yeah, that helps as well. But yeah, if you're driving, parking on the strip is not for free. You can get parking for free at the Venetian if you have a parking plaque as a poker player. And then but yeah, anywhere else, if you want to go to Caesar's property, you need like a Caesar's plaque card. So I know we always find people that have that and end up sharing that with us, so that way we don't have to pay $20 a day, because that's just outrageous. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. You're going to get nickel and dimed on fees as it is. Like, the rake keeps increasing. I think last year at Paris, it used to be like 8 or 9, and then it went up to 10. And I wouldn't be surprised if it went up another $1 or $2 this year. And so you're going to get nickel and dimed whether you play cash or tournaments. So you do want to try to save elsewhere as much as you possibly could to offset that. So
yeah, and don't get me wrong, they've done some huge improvements, like with the WSOP app, where you can rebuy right away. I mean, that does increase the amount of people re-entries in tournaments and stuff like that. So obviously they were like, oh, we had a 10% increase from the previous year, or whatever the percentage was. And they're like, oh, it's because people are playing more poker. No, it's because your system before was not efficient worth shit. And now what you have is an efficient system, and it's just the same amount of players, but when they're busting, they're able to buy a lot faster. So therefore it's increasing the amount of participants registered by 10%, So it's not more people necessarily playing poker, even though I hope that's the case. But I think we have a lot more people playing Pot Limit Omaha and Pot Limit Omaha events than we do No Limit Hold'em events from previous years, especially when you look at the Big O is going to have 2 days now. So you're going to give me 3 bullets on each day for that. Thank you. I mean, I'm planning on only firing 1 bullet and bagging huge, but just in case I get like a cooler at the end of the night. Now, this makes me consider like if I'm sitting there at the end of day one and we got an hour left to go and I'm sitting there with 100 bigs, should I get involved with somebody and bag 200 bigs? You know what I mean? And then that way I have a huge chip stack going into it. Like as a PLO player, I've never had to weigh that option before. That's only been applicable in Hold'em tournaments. So this is a different avenue that's coming towards me. I think I'm just going to play it like it's my last bullet and just say, fuck it. I say this now, and Wayne's going to be like, sure, I'll see you in the text thread just saying, on to bullet number 4. Let's go, bitches.
It's a balance like everything else. Like, yeah, I don't know. I'm usually pretty conservative, so I probably would just say, hey, I'm good with 100 bigs. I don't want to fire another bullet, but yeah, obviously you go into day 2 with 200K versus 100K, you're in much better position because you're willing to take more risk because you have that option of rebuying into day 2. So I would think I would probably take the more conservative approach. You probably would say, oh, well, if I could get 200K, I'm going to do that. So a little difference in our styles there.
Well, and also I play a little bit more comfortable the bigger stack I am too. So I think that has a little bit of an impact, but I have been coaching some players recently where it's way more important to be in the tournament than it is for you to make the right move. That's been like my lesson of the week with Mr. Thielman, who was watching us earlier today. Maybe he's still watching us, but I said it's more important for you to be in the tournament than it is for you to make the right call with the right equity. And you're not going to hear me say that very often, but if you know you're a better tournament player than your opponent, sometimes you're just better off, don't record this, folding and getting on to the next hand and picking a better opportunity. There, I said it. There you go, Wayne. You can check that off of your 2026 bingo box now. Okay.
Yeah. And you made sure to tell him to fold 7-8 suited, right? That was lesson number 2.
Oh my God. I love it when somebody starts off with I want to go over a no limit hold'em hand. Okay, how deep are you? I'm 42 big blinds deep or whatever. Okay, what's your hand? And then once they say something stupid like 7-8 suited, I just say stop. I don't want to hear anything else. Just stop.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go.
You have any other tips for WSOP, or did we kind of cover a lot of it, you think?
I think we covered a lot of it. We did have Jedi said he recently switched to live PLO after playing no limit for 12 years, and he wished he would have switched years ago, but maybe he didn't have to because of the discipline he has now. No, I get a lot of my students that say that. I think there's a lot more people who are transitioning over to PLO because they see that the game's softer, and it's not that it's like softer. It's just if you go on to a no limit hold'em table on a $1,500 no limit hold'em WSOP bracelet event, and you're in day 2, what fuck it, you're in day 1, you're on level 6. How many of those 9 players would you say, Wayne, watches a no limit hold'em poker vlog of some nature? I'd probably say 8. Right? 88% of those players, like they have one person that they watch, whether it's Mariano or Rampage or Brad Owen or Nietzsche or Teach or who cares, right? I mean, I don't know, there's what, like 168 different Hold'em vloggers out there. I mean, there is, right? I watched Apollo because he's a straight up fucking degen and he reminds me a lot of myself. But so on a table of 9 Hold'em players, 8 of them are going to have their Hold'em guy that they watch.
Yep.
You go to a 9-handed PLO table. Fuck it. We'll just say 8-handed PLO table. How many of those guys do you think watch a regular PLO vlog on a regular basis? Maybe 3.
Yeah, I would have said like 2 probably, but
25 to 40%. Let's just say 25 to 40%. So the reason why I'm saying that is because all those guys who are watching Hold'em vlogs have seen, oh, now that you have 10 jack suited, you're removing this and you can bet this. And they've had the theory repeated to them 100 times, where on PLO, you don't have as many of those players. You have people who have watched you and I, but again, that's only 2 out of 8 people, or maybe 3 out of 8 people on the table are watching some regular form poker content. Most of them are just like, fuck it, let's just play. You know what I mean? Even some of the serious PLO players are like, I don't even watch poker content because I just want to play. They're just a different breed of people. What do you think?
The one thing I'll say, if anyone's watching this and they're considering doing the same thing as Jedi, switching from no limit to PLO, here's the one thing I'll tell you. If you are somebody like your brother or like Johnny or some other people that have fuck you money, right? And you like to play a lot of hands, you're going to be much better suited to play PLO than you would Hold'em, right? Because the equities run so much closer. Even if I have ace, ace, jack 10 double suited or whatever, one of the top hands in PLO, and you have queen 9, 7, 3, one suit, you still have about 35% equity, right? Where in Hold'em, you play any random hand, you're going to maybe have like 20, 25, right? So these gambling type players they're more gravitating towards PLO 4, and then we play online a lot of 5 card, 6 card, which is even closer equities, right? So
especially when you get 2 boards.
Yeah, double board PLO 6, forget about it. But these gambling type players are gravitating more towards PLO because they can get away with playing a much higher VPIP than they would be able to in Hold'em, right? So these games on average are just so much better. Whereas you play Hold'em, you got €3 and 4 old man coffees. Like, this game is you're very capped at what you're actually going to be able. And for any of the Euros out there, we love you, but obviously stereotypes exist for a reason. Typically, if Josh and I used to have a rule in Texas, if we saw more than 2 Euros at a table,
we're like, moved.
Get the hell out of there, right? So I would say go check out your local card room if you have PLO and look at the average type of player playing in that game versus your average 1-2 no limit, and you'll most likely see what Josh and I have been talking about for years, that these gambling type players who are willing to get it in bad and just gamble with you essentially are going to more likely be playing PLO and some of these mixed games than they are Hold'em.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And here's the other thing, like, just count how many headphones are on the table. Like, on a PLO table, you might have one guy, maybe 2, who have headphones. 2 is kind of stretching it, really. But you might have one guy who has headphones on a no limit table. Like, half the table's got headphones. It's like, really? I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I'm much more. I like to read people, so I like to talk to people. But yeah, PLO, you do have a lot more whales that are willing to gamble. I had a friend of mine say, should I get it all in with ace against XYZ player? And I said, of course you should. And he said, why? And I said, because that person's the whale. They want to see that you're willing to gamble. Sure, you have 53% equity. Sure, if you just call pre-flop and you see what the flop is, you can make sure your equity is 70% or 80%. But they're not gonna pay you off when you have 100% equity or 90% equity next time. Because they're just gonna start realizing you're a nit and you don't like to gamble, and screw it. I don't mind gambling with them. I mean, that's what they're there for. They want to have a good time. I want them to have a good time. I just want them to stop hitting the fucking 2 and 4 outers against me. I mean,
yeah, does become costly, huh?
Oh yeah, just a little. Oh,
yeah. So last thing I'll say on that, along with the headphones, if you look at 2 tables and you don't even know what game they're playing, besides the headphones, look at which table is engaging in more conversation, which table is drinking more, right? Like, I don't really drink typically when I'm playing, but like, especially when we were in Vegas and we did the meetup games at Venetian and all the other places we've done meetup games, I'll drink a little bit. Like, I'll splash around with some hands that I normally wouldn't. So that's another good way to determine where you should sit, is see who's engaged in conversation, who's drinking more, and who just is having fun, right? And the exact opposite end of the spectrum, if you go to the Orleans and you see the people playing the 4-8-08, and you see these people like they all just got told their dog died, then that's probably not a game you want to play in. I mean, at least for me.
So for all the listeners out there, to give you a reference, I was in Milwaukee at Potawatomi with a friend of ours. His name's Jeff. And he was having a shit of a time at the circuit event. And I said, Jeff, let's go play some 3-6 no limit. I said, we're going to have an amazing time. We're going to get absolutely shit-faced. I buy in for 3-6 for whatever, $150 or $200, and I have like 1,300 in 3-6 limit with a full kill, like literally just running over. I had stacks and stacks of white chips, and Jeff had a blast too, but he lost like $200, and I had full intentions of losing $200 because sometimes when you just hate poker, if you play the lowest limit and you just are like, I'm going to piss away this money, but have fun doing it, it rejuvenates you. You feel like you're a youthful 17-year-old ready to take on the world. Well, Wayne was having a really shitty Vegas one year, and I said, hey man, you know what we need to do? We need to go play 4-8 limit Omaha, and we need to play with all of them and just make everybody else at the table hate us because we're just nonstop raising. So we went to the Orleans, and I think we lasted like 10 minutes. And I was like, I just want to fucking kill myself. These people are miserable. They were so miserable. It wasn't even like when we were raising, they were getting pissed off at us, which was normal. But then they were like getting pissed off about everything. And it's not to dock the Orleans, because I think the Orleans is one of the best poker rooms ran in the United States, but it was just the attitude of the players. So that's why Wayne keeps bringing that up, because it's kind of funny, because I was like, hey man, you really hate poker? Let's go play 4-8 limit Omaha at the Orleans. And then we go over there and we're like, fuck me, where's the nearest bridge? We just want to jump after playing with them. I shouldn't say that, because I'm sure there's one or two of them that are listening to us right now like, what the hell, you guys? No.
Yeah, I also think that the Orleans is super well run. And if anyone asks me where's a good place to get your feet wet in tournaments, I actually tell them the Orleans, right? Because they have $200, $250, like these low buy-in tournaments where it's not uncommon to go like, what was it? We played like a deuce to 7 single draw one year.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember Sean was with us and he had no clue. He had never played it, but there was a lot of other people. For $200, people are willing to play the game and learn, even though they have no clue what's going on. You're much less likely going to see that at a $1,500 Big O event or something at the series, right? So I will say super well run, but yeah, it's very easy in poker, especially when you play for a living over the years, to just kind of get into almost like a robotic mode of like, I'm there to make money and I'm going to play GTO. But like, it is also nice to see that some people still want to have a good time, right? Because yeah, if you play for a living, sure, your goal is to make money, but the majority of people, you know, that go to Vegas for the series, like they're just there to have a good time. They're there to have fun, right? So I think there is a little bit of a balance where you are trying to win money, but at the same time, you also want to make the game enjoyable, right? Because if every table was like that 4-8 limit 08 table that Josh and I played with that one night, the poker community would dry up very quickly. Like these rec players would not want to show up because they'd say, at least if I'm losing my money and having a good time, like you mentioned your buddy Jeff did, right? He lost a couple hundred, but he had a good time. He's willing to go back. But if all these rec players are showing up and they're super miserable and everyone's wearing headphones and everyone looks like robots, they're probably not as likely to show up the next day.
Well, and I'll tell a quick story. So a couple weeks ago, I was at the Wynn in Vegas, and I saw a 5,100 stud player that I played with at the series last year. And I remember I told you it was my day off, and I went in and I played 5,100 stud, and I just had a piss poor attitude of the whole world. We were waiting for Elliot Lesra's wife to show up. He was holding a seat for Elliot Lesra's wife. And for whatever reason, as stupid as I was, this was my day off, and I was just pissed off at the world. I was like, I don't care whose fucking wife she is. Why are we holding a seat for Elliot Lesra's wife? Right. I was just being a real shit, an absolute shit. And Brian, the guy who plays the game a lot, like nudged me, and he's like, hey man, are you okay? And he's like, how are you feeling? And it really made me realize at that point I was being the shit. And I ended up punting off $3,000 that day. And after I lost Elliot Lesra's wife, she got a 3 of a kind on my aces over or whatever. I don't know. It was 7 stud. So I remember getting up and being pissed, and not being pissed that I lost the $3,000, but I remember being pissed that I was the asshole at the table. And I remember that was the last time I played 5,100 in the summer, this series. So when I saw Brian at the Win, like a month ago, I pulled him aside. I said, "Hey man," I said, "I just wanted to let you know I was being a real shit that day. And I really appreciate you saying to me, 'Hey, how are you doing?'" I said, "Cause it made me realize I was on my day off, but I was still playing 5,100. Yes. When you have days off, you still somehow go play 5,100. Sometimes that happens as a poker player, like as a grinder, it happens. I don't know what to tell you.
Only for you.
You're right. My day off is 3 or 4 hours playing poker, which is what it was. I went there. I played for about 3 or 4 hours. I punted $3,000. I got really pissed off. I got pissed that I was a shit to Elia Lesra's wife. I was pissed off. I wasn't a shit to her, but I was just shitty to Brian and the other regulars. And I was like, why do I make myself look like an ass? And I can't remember what I did the rest of the day, but yeah, what was I just going with that? Oh, that reminded me of the story of I lost my train of thought. We were just talking about
being good for the game and like having a good time
for the game. Yeah, and it reminded me of how shitty I was. So I just wanted to take a moment and say, don't be that guy. Like if you're playing poker and you're playing poker and you're doing it for a living and you need to take a day off, take the whole day off. Now, that for me, that's still 3 or 4 hours, but don't be a shit if you're going to do it. That's my point.
That probably brings us to the last point of what you just said, taking a day off. So if you're going to be at the series for a long period of time, you should definitely schedule days off, right? Because we've mentioned this before on the podcast, but it's very Vegas in the summer is very draining because you're going from 115 degrees sometimes outside to 60 degrees inside. You're walking a lot, right? Like a lot. One year, I remember we have our buddy that has a VIP card to MGM, right? So we would park at Bellagio. And then we would literally have to like walk the street. We'd have to cross Vegas Boulevard. And like, so you're doing a lot of walking. You're going from hot to cold and hot to cold back and forth. Like you're playing sometimes 10, 12 hours, like with these tournaments. And you might not even be in the money until day 2, like 16 hours in, right? So it's very important to schedule. If you're going to be there for 2-3 days, screw it. Play 24 hours, whatever. Fine. But if
Wayne's
you're going
like,
to be there,
go get the 8-ball, go get the Adderall, go get it all.
Yeah. I mean, you're there for such a limited time, whatever, go for it. But if you're going to be there for a week or more, you definitely have to schedule days off. Like Josh and I like to go get massages, or we go to this place that has a infrared sauna and a cold plunge in one. You rent the room. I think it's like $100, and it's like a cool day off activity. It kind of helps you mentally. So you got to have that because it's a grind. And take it from me, the last couple of years, I've been like, even with taking days off, I've been super drained by like the 15th to the 18th, of the month. So definitely take days off. If you have to take a little break in between, I might do that. But if you go full on, probably stuff that's going to happen similar to what happened to Josh, where his day off, he's going to play. He's an asshole to the whale, Ellie Lesra's wife, which is really one of the number one rules in poker is don't berate the whale, right? Because they're the ones feeding the game, right? So that should be the first rule, first sign right there. But if you
when Ellie Lesra hands her $10,000 and says, "Have fun, honey. I'm gonna go play a tournament," and you're being a dick to her, get the fuck off the table. That's what I did. I realized I was being a shit, and I was like, I need to leave. I can't. If I can't be nice to, and not only that, but she wasn't doing anything wrong. She was the nicest person I ever met. But I mean, like if I can't be nice because I'm just having a bad day, that's a sign from the poker gods. I deserve to lose that $3,000.
Yeah, even if it's not a day off, like maybe it's 3 days in, and your day off is not till like day 4 or 5. But if you have a situation that comes up where okay, I don't normally act this way. Maybe, for Josh, it was him being an asshole to the whale. That's a sign for you. And it takes a lot to do this. It's taken me years to acknowledge that. Then it might be, I know you're committed, right? Maybe you drive to the casino 20 minutes, you had parking by the time you get in. But if you realize that, hey, I'm not in the best mood to play poker today, maybe it's better just to walk it off or, go.
Absolutely.
I used to take a lap around my casino after I lost a buy-in. And then I would basically, within that 5 minutes of walking around the casino, I would ask myself, can I play my A game or at least close to my A game? If the answer is yes, I rebuy. If the answer is no, then I rack up and live to fight another day.
No, I think that's really good advice. Yeah, for sure. And if you're getting burnt out, because we all get burnt out during Vegas, and usually for us, it'll probably be like somewhere between the 18th through the 21st. I know the Big O tournament's the 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th. So yeah, probably like after that, I could see us getting burnt out, or maybe even during that. Like if we both bust day one, both fire 3 bullets, we both keep getting it all in, and then we're just getting our teeth kicked in on everything. We might just be like, fuck, dude, this was a tournament we had circled. I totally get that. But yeah, definitely take days off and find something fun to do. That's what I like to do, is find fun things to do. So this year we're gonna have to play more backgammon. That's what I'm
backgammon. All right, I've never played backgammon, so I'm excited to learn.
Good. We'll just play for a few dollars.
And obviously on this podcast we've covered a lot of different topics, right? We've talked about mental health, we've talked about suicide, we've talked about marriage, divorce, all this other stuff. Obviously lately we've been a lot of poker talk, but if there's anything specifically that you want us to talk about or you think would be insightful for us to cover, please comment down below, shoot us a message, let us know. We have been more poker talk lately, because obviously the series is about 2 months away. We do have something down the pipeline that is poker related. So we are going to probably be poker talk for the next little bit. But again, whether it's poker related or not, let us know, good, bad, or indifferent. And we'll be happy to put your feedback into motion here.
Yeah, I think that's about it. If you want to be a guest on our show, go ahead and email us down below. Or if you want us to cover a different topic, go ahead and shoot us an email down below. And other than that, I think we will see you guys next Wednesday at 7 o'clock. Peace.
See you then.